Hi, I'm Dr. Naomi Hall, and I have worked in education for 20 years. So 19 of those were in the traditional K 12 setting, both public and private. I worked as a teacher, a department head, an administrator, and I spent a year working as a consultant running my own business. So Dr. Lane Hansel asked me to talk to you a little bit about leadership and some of the lessons I've learned in leadership. And some of them I learned from him. I was a student of his and I worked with him at the beginning of my career. And you have these four pillars of leadership that you're learning about: collaboration, teamwork, buy in, accountability. And there's one thing that I have found that kind of is an overarching principle in all of those, and that's relationship. Relationship is key in leadership. And it's not necessarily about building friendships, but building relationship and letting your staff know that you care about them. And you are going to go so much farther as a leader when you have built those relationships, when they feel safe coming to you with the difficult things, because that's going to happen. And I have to tell you, when I was a department head, there was a chair in my office. I didn't have a very big office. But for a while, that was like my crying chair. Because people would come in, close the door, and we'd have some really serious conversations that were very emotional for them. And there were often tears from the person sitting in that chair. So I also kept tissues in my office. So that's another key: keep some tissues in your office. But your staff should be comfortable coming to you with the difficult things, the hard situations. And that happens through building relationship. As a student, Lane and Pete Flint were two of my favorite teachers because they were my science teachers, and I loved science. I wanted to be a science teacher, but they took time to get to know me and to build a relationship with me beyond just my academics. They cared about my future and they invested in that. And then, as a new teacher, I got to be mentored by them, and they again, rather than telling me exactly what I needed to do and dictating everything, they often would tell me how they would handle a situation and then give me the freedom to go do it myself, and the freedom to not do it necessarily the way that they would. But they had built a relationship with me. And so I have carried that forward in my own leadership of going about and visiting my staff, going into their classrooms during their plan period to just see how they're doing, to just check on them, to ask them how their weekend was. How is their sick mom doing? How are their kids? How's their spouse? And just having conversations with them that weren't necessarily work related, they were relationship related. And so you really have to get out of your office. You have to have an open door policy in your office too, of people can come to you. They can come to your office, they can close the door, and they can have those conversations with you. Friday afternoons, walking around on Friday afternoons and poking your head into each person's office or classroom and saying, "Hey, hope you have a great weekend. Don't stick around long." That goes a long way in building the relationship and setting an expectation for your staff that you expect them to have boundaries between work and family and home life. You want them to have a work life balance. And so those relationships are really, really important because they build trust. And as you build trust, as you build relationship, you're going to be able to have better teamwork, better collaboration. You're going to get more buy in because there's that phrase that says, no one cares how much you know until they know how much you care. And so you really need to initially, when you start in a position, start building relationships, and then you need to maintain those as you continue in that position. And that's going to help you as a leader. And it's not just the relationships with your staff, but it's the relationships with your peers as well, that you are getting to know them and building relationships with them, so that you can collaborate with them, work with them, um, and bounce ideas off of them. You need to have those relationships, those equal relationships, where you can go into their office and say, "All right, hey, I'm having a really hard time with XYZ. Can we talk this out?" and talking through that with them. I had a lot of that when I was an interim assistant principal. I would frequently be able to go into my colleagues' offices and say, hey, this is the situation I'm dealing with right now. Here's how I handled it. What could I have done differently? Or here's the situation. How have you been handling this? Because we all need to handle it the same. And so before I would make a decision to move forward, I would make sure that we all were on the same page. And we often did that together, all of us, of, hey, I had this situation. Here's how I handled it. Okay, we'll move forward in the same direction. So you need to have relationship with the people that you are over, relationship with people that are on the same level as you, and then the relationship with the people who are over you. And the ones who are over you are further down the road than you in leadership. You really want to make sure that you are forming mentorship relationships, that there is someone or multiple people who are mentoring you in your position. So it may be the person who's directly over you, they may be a great mentor. Sometimes they are, sometimes they aren't. If the person over you isn't a great mentor, work with them, build a relationship with them, but then seek out one or two mentors who you can go to for advice, for kind of correction of like, hey, I'm really struggling in this area, can you help me figure out how to change this, where to grow in this? So we always want to be seeking out those three different levels of relationship: the mentor relationships, the collegial relationships with people who are on our same level of leadership, and then relationship with our staff. It takes work, it takes time, but it has a major payoff of you're going to be a better leader, and the people who work for you are going to work harder, longer, and go farther for you because you have a relationship with them. So that is really one of the key things that I've learned in leadership, is that relationship is key. And you'll find that in, like if you read any of John Maxwell's leadership books, it's one of his steps in the 5 levels of leadership is building relationship. But then you have to go beyond that to get to the other levels of relationship, but with other levels of leadership. But without relationship, you don't make it to the other levels of leadership. You kind of get stuck if you don't build relationships. So those are key. And a lot of that is getting out of your office and getting around. It's called managing by walking about, seeing your staff, poking your head in. If you're in education, making sure that you not just do your observations of your staff, but just pop in just to see them, and not a formal observation, but just leave them a sticky note of, hey, this was great. Not a but, not a you need to work on, not a however. It's just a, hey, this was great today. And you keep going. That goes a long way with your staff of, here are the things that I've noticed that are fantastic that you are doing. And so just those quick pop-ins rather than only doing formal observations. And that also makes the formal observations a little bit easier because you have been in their class. They know what it's like to have you in their classroom. And so they're a little bit more comfortable when you do a formal observation. And this would apply in any field as well. You don't want to only be doing yearly evaluations. You want to be in and among your staff regularly. Join them at lunch. Maybe not every day, but periodically show up at lunch and just enjoy some time with them. Um, Greet them when they come in the morning. Have your door open to your office. Walk around during the day. At the end of the day, hey, head home soon. Close up. Have a good night. Have a good weekend. Those kind of things go a long way with your staff. So that's what I've learned about leadership.